Hello everyone, welcome to my broadcast. I said I would come on and talk about witches who are mentally ill or physically disabled, and the fact that they are still witches and can still do witchcraft. There's a stigma surrounding witches who are mentally ill, bipolar, people in wheelchairs, people who are even something as simple as in a arm cast, that they can't do witchcraft. And that's just not true. Just because you are mentally unwell or physically disabled does not mean you can't still do witchcraft. The people who are saying you can't do witchcraft because you are fucked up in the head, you can't do witchcraft because you don't have any legs, are the same people who have no idea what mental illness is, have no idea what physical incapabilities are, and it's just another way to gatekeep witchcraft, to exclude. The same way that some female witches try to exclude men from being witches, even though men are witches, not wizards or warlocks or that anything stupid like that. So there's this claim that people who are mentally ill or taking medication or physically disabled can't do witchcraft, and that's not true. That's just another way to gatekeep, another way to exclude people from the craft. People who suffer from medical problems already have enough limitations without being limited by the craft. Mentally ill, people who are physically disabled, they already have enough shit to deal with. They don't want to be told, they don't need to be told that they can't be witches because they are just a little bit different than yourself. That's a crock of shit. Somebody write that down. That is a crock of shit, that I can't be a witch because I'm mentally unwell or I have a physical disability. That is a crock of shit. Somebody, several hundred people need to write that down. That is a crock of shit. Period. And you know I'm always going to keep it real with you guys. People, who make these arguments that mentally ill witches, physically disabled witches can't be witches, have no hands-on experience with the illnesses, or they damn sure don't have any experience with the medication these mentally ill people are taking, that they are taking issue with. So really evaluate the people who are telling you you can't be a witch because you are bipolar. You can't be a witch because you're in a wheelchair or you're bedbound. Yeah, you can still be a witch. These same people have no experience with the medication you take. They have no experience with your mental illness. So they should shut the fuck up. Okay? The first argument that comes with witches can't be mentally ill or they can't be physically disabled comes from that doing witchcraft when you are mentally ill or physically disabled will fuck up your well-being. No, it's not. Your mind is already not what it really should be. Your body is not really what it should be. Witchcraft is not going to make anything worse. If anything, truly speaking, witchcraft will make it better. That's why people become witches. That's why people do witchcraft. To change their shitty circumstances, to get out of situations, to make opportunities when opportunity is not knocking on that door. Witches make their own opportunities by doing witchcraft. Mentally ill, physically disabled people do the same thing. They're just different than you and I. The generalization that we throw that all mental and physical disabilities into one category makes these statements no more than one simple way to exclude these people who are mentally ill and physically ill from the crowd. You can't do that because You know what? Sometimes the people saying you can't be a witch because you're mentally or physically disabled are the same people who think that it's too much work. You know, they're a lazy ass. They think it's too much work to figure out how to adapt a magical practice like witchcraft to their capabilities. And you absolutely can adapt witchcraft to your capabilities, or for witches who are mentally or physically disabled, the lack of their capability. You're no different. You are no different. You can do witchcraft. You can. Who told you that you couldn't? What high priestess told you that you could not because you're mentally unwell or you're physically disabled? And let me tell you something else about mentally ill people. A lot of people who are categorized as being mentally ill, they're not mentally ill. They are just around fucked up people. Before you diagnose yourself with being mentally ill, make sure that you are not just surrounded by assholes. Are you surrounded by an asshole or assholes? Because most likely they're the problem, not you. It's not mental with you. It's just that you are around people. You may have fucked up family members, or fucked up friends. Everybody does. So you be so quick to categorize yourself as mentally ill, but you're not the problem at all. So yes, you can do witchcraft. You may need to practice witchcraft on a much smaller scale, but you can still do witchcraft even if you are mentally ill or physically disabled. You can do witchcraft. So you have to do smaller, simpler forms of witchcraft, or you may need to do witchcraft less than somebody who is not mentally ill or physically disabled. And you know what? That's fine too. You don't have to do witchcraft every single day. Remember, you do have a life outside of the craft. You do have a mundane life. You do have a natural life. You don't have to do witchcraft every single day. Doing witchcraft every single day does not make you a witch. What makes you a witch is the results you get from that spell, ritual, hex, or curse. Are they manifesting the way that you intended? If they are, then yes, you are a witch. You may have to choose to focus on magical methods of witchcraft that can help to boost your energy on an everyday basis. And another type of witchcraft that's easy for witches who might be mentally ill or physically disabled to do is kitchen witchcraft or sigil. What else? Let me think. You know, boosting your energy if you are mentally ill. I'm talking about just for people who are mentally ill for right now, okay? If you are mentally ill and you want to be a witch and do witchcraft, obviously, right? Witchcraft can actually help you function in life. Witchcraft can actually help you function in life. You don't have to go through life doing things the hard way. You don't have to go through life struggling, trying to jump through hoops, trying to appease a God that sacrificed his own son. You don't have to drink the blood of any chickens or, sacrifice your son or push your baby down into a river. You don't have to do any of that shit. That shit is a dud. That shit is a dud. Okay? What about people who are on psychiatric medication because they might be manic depression? Or they might be physically violent? You know how many people are sitting up in the insane asylum and they're not actually fucked up in the head like that? It's because of other people have drove them crazy. You heard that expression before, right? You're about to drive me crazy, yo. And then they get driven crazy. They end up in the crazy house. They end up in a loony bin because of other people. It's not the witch's fault. This is not taking away responsibility from the witch. It's putting the blame where it belongs. And the blame, most of the time, belongs on other people. Not you. Not you. So what about people who are on psychiatric medication that is aimed at altering the function of our minds? Most likely people who are bipolar. It depends on the person. How far, how deep have they gone in their mental illness? How bad is the mental illness? How bad is their physical disability? These are all questions that need to be answered. It depends on the person. If you're not mentally ill or physically disabled, you don't know what's going on with that person on the inside, internally. I'm talking about spiritually. Just because a person is mentally ill or physically disabled does not mean they're still not a spiritual being. They still have the 5 elements: earth, air, water, fire, and spirit. Spirit being Hecate, the queen of witches. The queen of witches does not discriminate on mental incapabilities or physical disabilities. It doesn't matter to her. Okay? It does not matter to her. It depends on the type of drug this mentally ill, physically disabled person is on. You don't know. You really don't know. You don't know what drug they're on to help them cope with their mental or physical disability. And like I always say, it's really none of your business anyway. Go find some business of your own. Go create some business of your own and stay in that business and not in everybody else's business. You know, I always talk about that, right? It depends on how the person feels on a day-to-day basis while they are taking that medication. You know, medications are not meant to be taken for life. I know some psychologists will say, oh, you have to be on medication for the rest of your life. You're going to be mentally ill for the rest of your life. No, you're not. No, you're not. I just said it. Most of the time, people are not mentally ill. It's other people who are driving them crazy. And once they get away from that person or persons, they're not crazy no more. They're not loony anymore. They're not fucked up in the head no more. Let's keep it real, right? Let's be honest here. Now listen, some drugs, some medications, some drugs that people take for mental or physical anguish can numb emotion. And you know witches put a lot of emotions in spells, rituals, hexes, and curses. Okay, some medications do numb emotions. That's true. Create what is known as, brain fog that can make it very difficult to focus when you are at the altar. But guess what? There's a cure for that. It's actually a cure for that. These drugs may do that for some individuals. They will not have that effect on others. But how do you conquer that? How do you focus when you have mental illness? You focus by writing out your spell. Even if you can't visualize spell happening in real time, like right now in your 3D reality, like how we're talking right now, as long as you've written it down, it is real. That's why I always tell witches to write your spells down in present tense, as though it has already happened. As though it has already happened. Write your spells down in present tense, especially if you are mentally ill, because you don't have to worry about having to focus on that spell coming to fruition because you wrote it down. Words are powerful. Words are powerful. So yes, some drugs do numb your emotions and they do fog your brain, but as long as you wrote that spell down on a sheet of paper, napkin, whiteboard, chalkboard, or your palm, not palm of your hand, as long as you wrote it down and you were crystal clear on what you wanted to get out of that spell, you don't have to worry about having to force yourself to focus, force yourself to visualize. You never want to force witchcraft. If you force witchcraft, it's not going to manifest the way you intended. And that was just a big waste of energy that you wasted, okay? Psychiatric drugs is as a whole are well known for affecting people in a number of different ways. Some people stay on that medication. Some people go off that medication, and then they go off that medication, and then they get really crazy, okay? There's a reason why it often takes a lot of what you call trial and, what's the word? A lot of trial and error to find a drug that works for a particular person. Not all drugs work on people, so don't take that suggestion of, you might be mentally ill, so take this drug, or you should take this drug. No, you should go to the hospital, get a blood test to find out what's going on in your brain, to find the right medication. Don't take your friend's advice. Don't take your mother's advice. Don't take your father's, your cousin's, your aunt's, your grandma, your granddaddy's advice about what medication you should take. No, go to the doctor and find the right medication by way of a blood test to find out what is going on in your head, so they can give you the right medication so you don't go off that medication and then really go off and go crazy as fuck. All right? A lot of these drugs, let's say, oh, you shouldn't do it because you're a witch. A lot of these drugs, these psychiatric drugs that are prescribed by doctors, are making life possible for these witches. They are making life possible for these witches. Without these drugs, without these psychiatric drugs, a lot of these witches who are mentally ill or physically disabled would not make it. They would be dead. They would kill themselves. They would kill other people. Okay? Not just making life possible for them, making life possible for people they would have probably killed if they were off those drugs and off the rails too. Okay? These drugs, the psychiatric drugs that are prescribed by doctors, can be life-saving if you are struggling with a mental problem or physical problem, okay, that threatens your continuation through life, that threatens your continuation through life, especially having to go through life on a day-to-day basis. There's nothing wrong with taking psychiatric drugs for a time, but eventually those drugs will wear off and you'll have to take a new type of drug to get you back on course. You don't have to be on these drugs for mental or physical disabilities for your whole life. It's a choice. You know your body more than anybody else, am I right? Because it's your body. You know your body, you know your mind better than anybody else. Nobody knows your mind, your body than you, because it's yours. It's not mine, not your mommy's, not your daddy's, not your cousin from down the block around the corner. It's yours. It's yours. You know when you've had enough. Your intuition is still usable. Your intuition is still there. Just because you're on psychiatric medication does not mean your intuition has gone quiet or on mute. No, it's still there. Your intuition is not just what you hear in your head. Okay? Your intuition is not just what you hear in your head. It's what you see. It's what you taste. It's what you hear. It's what you touch. Your intuition is not just in the middle of your forehead. It's not just dreams. Intuition is also what you feel in your gut. Okay? So it's not all in the middle of your forehead. Your intuition is always around you. Taking psychiatric drugs does not limit your intuition at all, because your intuition is spiritual. Humans, not just witches, but humans are spiritual. Okay? So your intuition hasn't gone anywhere. So if you are taking a medication that makes you more able to function in life, take the medication. Take the medication, and you're not a less of a witch because you do. You're not at all. Okay? If the medication keeps you from acting on destructive impulses, take the medication. Take the medication. Because that medication can help you improve your ability to do magic. That medication can help you improve yourself and do magic. Not just have the feeling of doing magic, but actually doing it. If you take a medication to help you through everyday life, you should still feel the same way that a normal person like me would feel. You know you're doing magic. It's not imaginary. You're not just seeing things. These are not just a coincidence. No, you're actually doing a damn thing. Okay? If your medication allows you to function in your life normally, as normal as possible, I would even go so far as to say, where you would not otherwise be able to do so, take the medication. Take the medication. That medication makes you a better witch. That medication makes you a better witch. That medication makes you a better witch. If you are mentally ill, physically disabled, and on medication, you're taking that medication as it is prescribed, it will make you a better witch. It will make you a witch no different from somebody who is not mentally ill or physically disabled. It will make you a better witch. Okay? It will make you a better witch. As it should, as it will, if you take the medication as prescribed by your doctor. If you don't abuse the medication and taking it whenever you think you need it, instead of taking it when you know you should take it at a specific time. Okay? You do not have to give up a medication that is working well, very well for some witches, for you because it means you need to change the way you do witchcraft. You do not have to give up a medication to change the way you do witchcraft. You're still a witch. If you are mentally or physically disabled, you are still a witch. You have some things in your mind or in your body that is not quite right. But if the medication is helping you, you are a witch. 100%. Without a doubt. Don't doubt it. You need to ask yourself before you do witchcraft, how do you feel? Anyone who suffers from hallucinations that might be violent or graphic or ghoulish or gore, and where you see them in your head, or someone who has a psychosis, or someone who is paranoid, or should not do witchcraft. If you're taking medications for that paranoia, for those hallucinations, for those psychosis, then yeah, but only if you are doing medication. If you are not taking medication, those hallucinations, those psychotic episodes that you might see in your dreams, seeing things, horrible things, what else? What else did I mention? Paranoia. And you're not on medication, it can turn very, very dark for you. It can take your mind to a very dark place. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing black magic, dark magic, but when you are mentally unwell, you can summon other things from the supernatural realm. You can summon other things from the supernatural realm. Demons, trolls, gargoyles, malicious aliens, rogue angels, all things dark, because you're not taking the medication you need to block all of that negative energy from coming into your magical circle and coming towards you when you are standing or kneeling at your altar. Okay? These conditions, being paranoid, being psychotic, seeing things, horrible things, having hallucinations, waking up crying every morning after having a horrible, terrifying nightmare. These conditions can make it very difficult to ground. Which is ground so that our energy is not all over the place before we release it after completing a spell to where we want it to go. When you are paranoid, when you suffer from hallucinations, when you are psychotic, when you suffer from delusions and you're not taking medication, it can be very hard as a witch to ground in reality, and it can be very easy to mistake something that is mentally made up, mentally fabricated for a magical event. It's actually not magic. It's actually you having a mental breakdown or a mental issue. You need to most likely call 911 on your damn self. Okay, on your damn self. It's very hard for a mental person who is not taking medication to be able to tell the difference between something that is 100% not real and actual magic happening. It's very hard because they're not on the medication. Or like I mentioned earlier in this broadcast, they don't need the damn medication because they're not mentally ill. They are just surrounded by assholes. So you really have to check in with yourself. How do you feel? How do you know something is a delusion or a hallucination? If a hallucination is telling you to go blow up a building, fly a plane into a building, that's a hallucination. Hecate would never tell you to go out and do something like that. That's a demon you've unknowingly summoned. That's a rogue angel. That's a troll. That's a gremlin. That's a gargoyle. That's a malicious alien. Oh yes, I just mentioned aliens. Yeah. Aliens are part of the supernatural, in case anybody was wondering, all right? Aliens are real. They exist, okay? So it's really hard when you don't take your medication to tell the difference between witchcraft and hallucinations because you're not on your medication or you've stopped taking your medication. I know some people say, I don't like taking medications because I don't like the way it makes me feel. Of course you're not going to like how it makes you feel the first time you take the medication. Give the medication time. I'm not even a doctor and I know that. Give the medication time. It hasn't even made it through your entire body. Give your medication time. It's not going to run through your body, reach all your organs in less than 24 hours. It's just not going to happen. Okay? Ask yourself this question. Do you feel all there? Are you in this reality? Do you feel all there in your mind? Even if you are physically disabled, are you tired? Do you need to stay in bed today? Do you need to sleep for an extra 2 or 3 hours? That's why it's important to have a serious conversation. Write down the questions that you have for your doctor or for your psychologist. And if you have a psychologist or if you go see a therapist, be very careful of revealing that you are a witch because they might try to say that's mental illness. Or they might be afraid of you. Or they might not want to see you anymore. So think long and hard about mentioning to your therapist if you have one. Should I tell my therapist that I am a witch? Ask yourself that question. The therapist might try to, force medication on you so that you are not a witch anymore. Medication cannot stop a witch from being a witch. It can't. Science has not progressed that far. Okay? Science has not progressed that far. The second thing, do you have the energy? Now, this is mostly for people who are physically disabled. This is mostly for people who are physically disabled. Do you have the energy? You can do less intense, less energy forms of magic, such as sigils. You know, do witchcraft when you feel comfortable, when you feel all there, when you don't have confusion, when you don't feel tired or sleepy, or you need a nap, or you need to sleep for 2 hours, or you need a full sleep cycle of 8-10 hours. Do witchcraft on whatever your energy level is. If you're bedridden, you're probably not going to go for a hike outside. Because most likely, if you were bedridden, it's hard for you to walk. Or you maybe cannot walk. Maybe your legs don't work anymore. Maybe you have no legs. Okay? And another thing, how are your motor skills? How are your motor skills? The most important consideration is whether you can do witchcraft without hurting yourself and without hurting other people. When I say hurting yourself, I mean physically hurting yourself. Like, if I hit you, you feel it. Or if I punch you, you feel it. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. These are good questions that need to be answered. They need to be answered. Where are you right now with witchcraft? How do you feel? Are you on medication? Are you taking your medication? Are you taking your medication if you happen to be physically unwell? How are you feeling? And if you are mentally ill, you can be a witch. You can do witchcraft if you're mentally ill. Absolutely. There's no reason why you wouldn't be able to. There's not one good reason. Oh, people will say, I'm just worried about your well-being. It's my well-being. I'm good to go because you take your medication as prescribed by your doctor. You do what you can do, even if you are physically disabled. You are still a witch if you are mentally unwell or physically disabled. So I really wanted to come on here live and broadcast this for witches who may be mentally ill or physically disabled. And I will leave this up for the replay. I'm going to upload it onto YouTube and Facebook too. So thank you guys for joining me, and I'll speak to you guys soon. Bye everyone.